Hi everyone, so welcome to Investing for Value. Today we're talking about Smile Direct Club. So you would have seen my previous video just last week really, and I was talking about how Smile Direct Club was going to have amazing potential given their new Walmart deal, and they're selling everyday products rather than just focusing on the braces kind of side, right? So when I was doing that video, it was about just above $10, and then it proceeded to drop to $9.19. But since the start of this week and market close today, it's gone up to $13.72. If you compare it from this price, it's 49% up in 3 days, which is really good. So if you bought at the bottom, or even if you didn't buy at the bottom, even if you bought like at $10 or somewhere around that, you're still looking at a good 30% or 40%, which is amazing for a few days. So the question is, with this fast, if something's risen this fast, you got to consider that it might pull back a little bit, or it could have that momentum, and it could just charge back up because people see a lot of potential in that. So I got a question recently. Would Smile Direct Club head to $30? So when you say a price target, the price target, I'd usually just imagine $30 within the financial year, like this year or something, or calendar year. So since we're at the start of the year, let's put it as, can Smile Direct Club get to $30 this year? And currently the market valuation is $5.24 billion. So thought if you want to predict the price, you got to look at the valuation, and then to really get a better idea of the valuation, you got to look at the revenues, right? So the revenues have been growing quite well from 2018. This is the 3 months, from 119 million to 180 million, which is pretty good growth. And this is for the 3 month, which is showing, these guys can grow big numbers, especially here, from 294 million to 553 million. So when you consider this, it's a good growth, that's a good, at least round about 260 million. So if we consider that, hey, these guys can add, and this is a 9 month, right? So we got to consider that, we can tack on another 3 months of that, and then maybe we'd get about, for the financial year, we'd be getting about 700 million. So if the financial year is about 700 million in revenue, then we have to consider, okay, so are these guys going to likely continue their growth? Yes, the growth. But I don't see the growth stopping, especially since they've only been recently expanding to many other different countries. So the growth is definitely there. Like, you're expanding to many different countries, and also you're selling your products into, say, like Walmart, Walgreens, and they're expanding in terms of like toothbrush, toothpaste, clean, whiteners. So I don't see the growth stopping. The question is, if say for 12 months that'd be around about 700 million in revenue, you'd probably give them the benefit of the doubt that they can get to $1 billion in revenue the year after this. So we're looking at $1 billion in revenue, right? This is where it's going to help us calculate. So this is in cut off a little bit, so we're going to put that down a bit. Okay, so at $1 billion, how do we see this valuation of this company? Well, given 50% growth, I'd say, 10 times revenue isn't a metric that I wouldn't give them. Like, it's very possible you can give them that, as long as they can sustain their growth, and as long as they aren't losing like a ton of money. Like, currently they are losing a few hundred million. So the question is, does it start to, do they start losing less given they're getting more revenues in? You would hope so. You would hope the margins were pretty good, that it starts to cover it. If it's not covering it, then you have to start reconsidering the situation. So my question here would be, can we get to $30 per share? Well, $30 per share isn't too out of the question, because at the end of the day, we're already at 13.72, so you double that and you're at $27. So it's a matter of, if we doubled this valuation here, would it be a problem? And to be honest, I don't think it's a problem, because you got to remember this company came on to the market at a valuation of 8 billion. So if you come on around about there, it's a matter of like, and kind of like everyone kind of didn't see the potential in the company, and the share price just slid way down. So the prices we're buying at here, they're actually really good pricing. So that's why it's just risen so quickly, because all of a sudden the attention's just been focused on this company, and everyone's kind of seeing the potential of the company, that this can be a company that's going to dominate the world in terms of like dental products. Like, it's not going to take all the market share or anything, it's just going to take it's going to take a slice of the pie, but that's enough to be a really big company and to generate a lot of revenues. So if we're going to say $30 a share, we're looking at about 11.5 billion in market value, which isn't that difficult. Like, I'd say that's really possible. So I'd say, yeah, it's definitely possible. This year, I think it's quite doable. But of course, everything depends on financial results. If we could predict the financial results that easily, then we wouldn't need to like do calculated risk. We'd just put our money into it. Of course, there's always risks here, but at the current scheme of things, if we're looking on face value, them being able to grow a large number of revenue, the last 3 months doing quite well compared to 3 months on last year, I'd say these guys can grow quite well. They're definitely showing that they can add at least a few $100 million in revenue a year based on their current growth. And it kind of, capacity builds on capacity, right? The more revenue you get, the more profits you can start to, you've got more gross profit that you can spend towards marketing, spend to hire more staff, and it just builds with critical mass. So can they achieve $1 billion in revenue? Yes, very possible. Like within the next 12 months, yeah, like I think it's possible that they can do that. Definitely within 2 years, easy. So if they can do that, to say, can they be worth 11.5 billion within this year? That's quite possible. If the markets are going as good as they are, it's a high chance they will get there. So $30 is definitely very possible. Yeah, that's kind of like where I'm seeing the potential. But like if it gets to that area this year, that's kind of like the upside of things. So you got to consider that if it gets to that valuation, it's kind of the upside of the company, and it's kind of pricing for success. And as I like to say, if you're buying a company where the share price is already priced for success, then you might want to start reducing. Currently still cheap, so don't worry, but once it gets to there, you might want to consider, do I reduce? Of course we got to get there first, and I'd say if you've got the patience and you give it the time, it'll get to $1 billion in revenue, and it will very much have a chance of getting to 11.5 billion. So I hope that answers your question. Like if we want to work back to valuations, we want to look at the market valuations, and then we want to look at what their revenues have been like, and the revenue numbers, the growth numbers are amazing. Like anything growing over 50%, usually impresses me. I don't like the loss number. The loss number is a bit higher, but of course you can see that they're spending a lot on marketing. Like ever since I looked up Smile Direct Club, and I'm sure it's happening to you as well, every time you go onto a website and there's an advertisement, it's Smile Direct Club. They're just like, there's so much advertising that you're easily targeted just because you show some interest. So the advertising is on full volume. So like anyone that's considering their products, they're gonna start looking at them, and if they make a good impression, these guys can full out, definitely do really well. And they're getting the sales behind them. As I say, they've done about 750,000 of the aligners, like in terms of like clients. And then future wise, if they get to 1 million people, that's a real credible sale to say this worked for 1 million people. So that's kind of kind of the spin. Like, can these guys sell? And if they're really good at selling, then everything just flies off the shelf for them. And I think they should do quite well, but that's my opinion. You could well think they're worth, much less or much more. So as always, do your own research. If you don't do your own research, it's very hard to decide on for yourself, because you could ask me and I'll give you my opinion, of course. As always, you should always consider every perspective. Stock markets are made out of like so many different range of perspectives that like if you can see everyone else's perspective, then it kind of gives you a better idea of what people value this company at. At the current market value, like it's very doable. Like it's not a question of, oh, once it gets to here it's an insane valuation. It wouldn't be insane. It would just be on the top end of the valuation. So yeah, like I wouldn't say it's a difficult thing. And yeah, like if it got to like 15 or 20 billion, then I'd say it's getting up to that really frothy, really insane. If it was this year, like they have a lot to prove. This company still has a lot to prove that it can cement itself into this market and continue to grow its current base. But if you're going at 50%, that means you're getting really good traction. So that's the things you want to consider. I hope that helps you answer that question of, does this company have further room to go? Currently I feel like the share price, it might have a bit more room to go, and then it pulls back and then it goes again. If you're in it for long term, don't worry about it, it's going to take care of itself. But if you're in it for a short term, then I'd say always consider that anything that moves fast upwards can also move that same way downwards. So take a cautious and risk-adjusted approach. But if you're investing for a long term, it's not a big problem. If you look at Tesla, right, you consider Tesla about 12 months ago was about 3 to 350, and then it took a massive plunge towards like $200 per share. But if we consider like what's happened now, Tesla's at about $530. So like if you were a shareholder like that was holding through the $300 plunge to $200 and then holding till now, you would have done really well, even though like it would have been a heck of a roller coaster ride. Like if you're watching the share market every day, like the thoughts going through your mind, it's about sometimes it's just good to buy, put it in the bottom drawer, go do your own stuff. You've got hopefully you've got other things in your life that you can do, and then that just helps you steady your mind, steady the reasons why you invested. But if you invest and then you're just constantly looking at the share price, then you might consider like every time it goes upwards or downwards, upwards and downwards, upwards and downwards, you're going to get a bit jittery. You might not hold for long term because you go the profits. Like right now, if you were at the low and you're looking at the share price now and you're 59% up, then you might be considering that's a really good gain. So that's the question: would you just take the money? And as a share, as a stock investor, you want to consider what is an ideal return for you and do what you're happy with. And then that's the thing. The question is, can it go further up this year? I definitely think this year it can. Can it go further up next week, this week? Those are very, like those questions not really easily predictable. Like there's definitely momentum going for it, and if there's momentum going for it, it's very possible. But for me to consider this price tag, I'd say it would have to be slowly upwards for most of the year, and I would say you want to consider that like right now we're in a really good, nice, perfect market. Everything's like, we're in this peak of like euphoria, where everyone's kind of feeling like, oh, we're kind of in this high. So if you're feeling like you're in a high and then you really don't any way down, there's going to be a bit down from here, I think. But if you're long term, yeah, no problem. But if you want to, so can it hit the $30 this year? I definitely think so. Of course, barring that the company performs well, but like legal suits. Like the one thing that always comes with this company is they always end up in court for like one or two reasons. But luck's been on their side. They have managed to win the last few court cases that have come for them, and then they won the recent court case, which gave them a clear way to sell their liners. So, because I think what the court case was deciding was that are these guys, like, are they providing dental care? And it turned out they're not providing dental care. They're just a middleman. So then it just cleared their way to do whatever they like. Because if they were doing in the dental business, and they were considered the dentists, then there was a bit more regulation that was going to come in. But the fact that these guys are just considered a middleman, they're all clear to do what they like. So I think currently everything's going right for the company. The problem is if something wrong comes in, then what happens? But if barring everything goes smoothly, I think they can full well go there. Alright, until next time, do let me know if you have any questions. If you even got to the end of this video, like, I understand that sometimes I can make them a bit long. So like if it's too long, let me know, or if you've got questions or comments, they're always welcome. The reason I do this is because it helps me try to, when you put something on paper, and this helps me get my mind around it, and it hopefully helps you get your mind around it. And then, we're on this journey together, looking at these companies, and then trying to get a better picture of where they might head in the future. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, good luck in investing.